Special day today, actually. Special Sunday. Every Sunday is a special day. It's the first day of the week, and so the nice thing about Sundays is every Sunday you get to turn over a new leaf, start over again. God was gracious to give us the 7-day cycle. So if you had a bad week, who had a bad week last week? Wonderful. Nobody had a bad week. That's outstanding. No wonder we were singing so well today. Everybody was happy because he had a great week last week. And how many of you had a very busy week last week? Okay, now that's different. Busy is not bad. That's a good thing. So, and last week, for many of our young people, it was a very important day for them because this was when they went through their graduation ceremonies, put on the cap and gown and go through all the pomp and circumstance and get a little piece of paper put to them that they have spent 12 years diligently studying the books. That's supposedly what it was. But today, I really want to take the opportunity to recognize our graduating seniors for 2002. And so I'm going to ask those seniors from each of the schools, any of the schools, if you're a senior graduating today, and I'll limit it to high school. So seniors in high school, come on up. Hi. So this is Stephen from Grace Christian Academy, and this is Katie from Taipei American School. And there's several others that were graduating seniors, but they didn't have the guts to be here this morning. No, that's not true. That's not true. I understand what it's like trying to get up and trying to get teenagers to wake up at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning to get to church. Some people 6 o'clock, right? Some people have to get up at 6 in order to get all the way here. But I'm glad for the opportunity because what we're doing is recognizing today 12 years of growing and maturing and studying and developing and learning and producing, and now these years have finally come to a conclusion. Are you glad? Yeah. Kind of glad. Yeah? No? They must not have given him enough homework. But you'll find out. You'll learn a little bit more about Stephen later. That Stephen always answers the other way from what you expect. So, but nonetheless, it's a major turning point in their life. Your life from this past year on is going to be a bit different. Yes, it is. That's a promise, and don't mean to scare you at all, but. It doesn't always happen all at once, but you're at a place in your life where you're transitioning from being a child to being an adult. Now, you may think that you're an adult already, but that's part of the education, that there's still so much to learn. I'm going through a bit of a transition myself. So, it's a major step that's being made, a major stepping out, a major becoming independent, becoming your own persona, and coming into your own, as it were. But it's also the beginning of more responsibilities. And you know how we love responsibilities. I don't know if you have to do that or not, but you probably don't have to cook your own meals. Well, get used to it. You know, Mommy's not going to be there to cook for you anymore. And guess what? Popcorn won't be enough, and McDonald's is going to kill you. So you're going to have to go and buy vegetables and cook them for yourself because you want to. That's just part of being a responsible adult, for you looking out for your own physical health and well-being. And you know what? You might even have to go out and buy some detergent and wash your own clothes. Not only wash your own clothes, you might even have to buy your own clothes. But probably you've been buying your own clothes, just not with your money. So that comes to the other thing, that as you move on into life, you'll have to spend your own money. But wait. Before you can spend your own money, you've got to earn your own money. And that's a whole different step that needs to be taken. Now, I want to encourage you, especially in your spiritual journey, because that's what our community is about. That's why we want to recognize you today, because we also want to be a part of encouraging you and helping you. And more than ever, you're going to have to take the responsibility for your spiritual journey. Whether or not your parents have had anything to do it to this time, But I would say to you this, there's some people today that still depend on the pastor. They can't make a single step in their spiritual maturity without somebody goading them along. And that's part of growing up, taking responsibility for that. So I think that graduation and the graduates need to be recognized. And we have a little gift, a card that we want to give to them. Come on up. Come on up. Yeah. We're glad you're here today. And we apologize for having a service too early for you. Okay. But here's what I'd like to do, first of all, and since you just came, I'm going to start at this end. But I'd like for you to give us your name and tell us where you're going and why. No.
Hi, I'm Katie Chu. I'm going to Rutgers University next year.
And you're planning on majoring in?
Pharmacy.
Okay, good. Steven?
Hi, I'm Steven. I'm going to Harvard University. So it's going to be pretty hard.
One
Does
of the
anyone?
first things you have to learn as an adult is to tell the truth.
No, I'm going to Liberty University. Yeah, you know about it. Yeah. Why? It's because it's going to be an awesome place.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Jennifer, and I'm going to UC Berkeley.
Hi,
What was your major? Undecided.
I'm Kaylee, and I'm going to New York University for liberal studies.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad you're here. And Dan, if you'll come up and present just a card and a gift, we want to recognize these seniors for their accomplishments that they've accomplished this year. Yeah. Let's give them a hand, shall we? Yeah. I know. Thank you. Thank you. You can be seated. You can be seated. Is this better? So although we're recognizing the seniors for today, record, play, okay, go on our way. The thing is about this, and what I'm going to say today, a lot of what I'm going to say is directed towards seniors on purpose. And in directing these remarks towards seniors, also including many of you who are moms and dads, because you've either been through this, you're going through this, or you will be going through this. And there's some things that I think are very important. But the seniors today, we just want to be an encouragement to you, to know that we want to recognize you as part of our community and want to maintain our part of your life, even though you're going to be leaving for some time. Now, it's at this point in life, though, that many of us have made these changes. And it's also at this point in our life that typically we want to be giving advice, right? Those of us who have been a little bit further down the line, we feel like we have a few words of advice that we want to give to you who are taking the next step. And I might remind you that this is a next step. That means that there were some steps that brought you to this place. There's going to be some steps that follow this, so it's just a step, okay? Lest we blow this all out of proportion. I think one of the funniest things, and please don't take offense at this if you're a young mom whose little child is graduating from kindergarten. I just have thought that's the funniest thing in the world, that we dress our little kindergarten kids up in a cap and gown and graduate from kindergarten. Anyway, I better stop there. So, but when it comes to giving advice, I really think that we in this congregation have people who can give some very wise words of advice. It starts with those who are mothers and fathers. Mothers and fathers have an unusual wealth of wisdom to give. You know why? Because they've had to raise children. They raised them when they were 2 years old and they were terrible and couldn't do anything right. They raised them when they became teenagers, and teenagers who were absolutely convinced that they knew more than their parents did and knew more than anybody else did, and yet parents had to very wisely show them that they needed more wisdom and advice. So I think that our many mothers and fathers have some good words of advice for you seniors in the coming days and weeks. I also believe that we have many in our midst, in our congregation here today, who have learned wisdom from experiencing very harrowing, even tragic life events. Some in our midst, you have these indelible scars in your body that will never go away. Those are lessons that were very hard learned. Those are lessons that you will always take with you. And I would say to those of you who are graduating, and those of you who, not necessarily, but any of us, we would be wise to listen carefully from those who have been scarred and whose lives are shaped in ways they never imagined because of events that life took them through. There's a wisdom there that cannot be learned any other way other than through pain and suffering. And as much as we may not like it, it's a good teacher. We also have many among this congregation here who have achieved great success in their fields of their occupation. We have those who have even attained heights of leadership, who are responsible for hundreds, indeed even thousands of people they may be responsible for in their corporation, in their school, in whatever God's given them to do. We have others who have great experience through just entrepreneurial experience and events and stepping out on their own and starting something brand new. I have to say to you folks, listen, we may read a lot of books, but in our midst and people we rub shoulders with in this group here today, there's an incredible wealth of wisdom if we would stop and listen from the events and things that people have learned from life. And I say to you, especially young people, you've got the world at your fingertips right now. Literally, at a keyboard or a mouse, you have the world before you. But there's a huge amount of wisdom in people that you fellowship with and that you hang out with day to day, even if only once a week in this group here. Regardless of the innumerable books by sages and philosophers, teachers and prophets that can fill entire libraries with advice, you might find occasional bits of wisdom, but you'll find great depths of wisdom even in our midst right here. And as your pastor, I don't equate myself with great depths of wisdom by any means. I consider myself to be very stubborn and consequently have suffered great pain because of my stubbornness and just not being able to learn so easily lessons that should have been learned. And that's why I want to keep you from having some of the same experiences, just because don't want you to go down that path. But the thing is, from my own experience, you see me up here as pastor. You don't see the scars that I also carry. And that's true of many of us. When I was a senior in high school, graduating from Morrison Academy, how many years ago was that? Good night. That was 1970. Yeah. Did you hear that? I never thought people would say that. Hey, listen, I'm facing a bit of a milestone of my own. Next Saturday, I hit the big 6-0. I turn 60 next Saturday. Never thought I'd see the day, and who knows, I still may not, But anyway, I'm hoping to. So the thing is, and that's why I feel like I can stand and say some of the things I do, because I got that T-shirt. When I was a senior, I was asked the question, what would you like to do over again if you had the opportunity? I mean, they were expecting us to look back at some mistake that we did, and if we had to do over again, we would. My reply was rather arrogant. I said, you know what? I got it right the first time. I have been eating those words ever since. For the last 42 years, I've been eating those words. I didn't get it right. And now I realize that I'm sharing that with you so you don't have the same attitude. But even in my spiritual journey, I took some dangerous detours. There was no need to take these detours. There was no need to take these turns. They were foolish mistakes. They were foolish decisions that I made in my spiritual journey. And I carry those marks. I also carry those memories. I am just wanting to share a bit of my heart because I understand some of you are celebrating a great occasion today, but a year or 10 years or 20 years from now, you may look back at this as being one of the happiest days of your life. And I hope that it's not the happiest day of your life. I hope there's much more to it than this. And I'd like to also take some opportunity to share from my family to your family. I have a big family. I have 6 children and now 6 grandchildren. And boy, I'll say it again, you're going to think it's stupid. And I always thought it was stupid. But if I knew grandchildren were as much fun as they are, I would have had them first. I would have just skipped over the kids. But that's not how it works. We're not a perfect family. My children also, in their different stages of life, they bear scars also from their past and also from their parents. Their parents, unwittingly, I believe, inflicted some scars. So this past week, and thanks to technology you can do this, I texted my children, and each of them, and I asked them this question. If you were going to give one sentence of advice to a graduating senior, what would you say? It so happens that their youngest sister, Bridget, is graduating next year. So I said, think about it, and you can tell her next year, but tell me this year. So they replied different things. My oldest son, Anthony, wrote back and said, read your email. I said, are you kidding me? That's the advice you have for me? Read my email? That's what you tell a graduating senior? Read their email? They don't read emails. They read Facebook. What kind of... But anyway, what he was trying to tell me was, after I got done pontificating about this read your email, he was telling me to read my email. And in the email... in the email, there was a link from his wife Coquina, that his wife Coquina had given regarding an article in the Wall Street Journal. It's been out several years probably, but it's 10 things your commencement speaker won't tell you. Now, I'm not going to go through all 10 things, but there were a couple of things that I thought were very, very important and the things that would be helpful today. One of those things is this. Some of your worst days lie ahead of you. Some of your worst days lie ahead of you. We could say, you ain't seen nothing yet. Now, at commencement exercises, they always have telling the graduates what a happy day it is and to tell you you're going to do anything and have a wonderful, everything's going to be fine. But it's not. You're going to have some days you're just going to want to crawl in a hole. And then you want somebody to pour the dirt on you. And they will. Another thing that was mentioned in this article is don't make the world a worse place. Oftentimes, commencement speakers will challenge you and charge you and want you to aspire to do great things. But don't use your great talents to mess things up. There's too many smart people that are doing that already. And I thought this was really good. And if you really want to cause social mayhem, it helps to have an Ivy League degree. You're smart, motivated, creative. Don't use that then to make the world a worse place. Everybody's going to tell you, you can change the world. Yes, you can. But you can just as easily change it to make it a worse place. Don't do that. And this writer says, I'm not asking you to cure cancer. I'm just asking you not to spread it. Good advice. And then this advice is probably not so much for graduating seniors as it is for moms and dads. And he says this: kids' sports are becoming ridiculously structured and competitive. And here's what we're teaching. Here's what we're teaching our children. We know that success isn't simply running faster than everyone else, but the message we're sending from birth is that if you don't make the varsity soccer team and you don't get into the right school, then somehow you're going to finish life with fewer points than everyone else. Wrong. My obituary is not going to say, David Homer died yesterday. He finished life in 186th place. Who cares? And yet we're teaching our children from a very young age that you have to be better than everyone else, and you've got to climb. And we start that in sports with this huge competitiveness that we're trying to foster upon them. Parents, beware of that. And if your senior is graduating today, good luck. You'll be able to learn from some of the other things here. And here's another one for seniors and for parents. Your parents don't want what is best for you. They want what is good for you, which isn't always the same thing. There's a natural instinct to protect our children from risk and discomfort, and therefore to urge upon them safe choices. Theodore Roosevelt, soldier, explorer, and president, once remarked, "It is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed." It's a great quote. But I'm willing to bet you that Teddy's mother wanted him to be a doctor or a lawyer, not a soldier or an explorer or president. My oldest son, Anthony, had this to say if he were going to give advice to a senior, more than read your email. He said, "My advice would be to plan on doing something completely different from what you planned on doing, because everything changes." So if I were to ask you today, how many of you are doing today exactly what you wanted to do when you graduated from high school? Surely there's somebody. Okay, good. Because you're pretty close to it, right? Okay. Okay, some are doing, but most of us would have to say, we had no idea we'd be doing what we're doing now. For me, I was going to be a professional soccer player. But then after I hurt my knee, I decided, no, I'm going to go into politics, political science. I wanted to be an AIT person. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to go into the diplomatic corps. That's why I studied political science. And what am I now? You know what I am? I'm an ambassador for Jesus Christ. My daughter Melinda is a captain in the Air Force. She's in Air Force intelligence. She's the chief analyst for local terrorism, national terrorism. She has most recently just been on maternity leave because gave birth to our most recent grandson. His name is Hollis Mansfield Black III. And our first black baby, by the way. Here's what Melinda has to say. Melinda, my daughter Mindy said, "Failure just means you have the guts to try something hard. Don't be afraid of it, overcome it." She's not even 30 years old yet. I said, "Can I quote you on this, Captain?" That's good advice. Her husband gives this advice. Jared is also a captain in the military, and he said, "Date in herds." Now, that's equally good advice. Let me say it again. Date in herds. You know what that means? Somebody want to give me what that means? Say again. Safety in numbers. My son-in-law, who married my daughter, boy, I said, "That's great advice, son. I'm glad you gave that." He said, "Date in herds." In other words, Don't be pairing off right away. That's going to be dangerous. Keep together in a group. May I say to you, keep together in a good group. Find a good community to be a part of. I had a bad, and I probably still, I shouldn't say this, a bad character trait of mine is I always gravitated to the lowest common denominator. I always hung out with the worst people. I was going to say I haven't overcome that, but since I'm hanging out with you, I decided that wasn't a very polite thing to say. And here's another thing. I asked my children another question. I said, what advice would you give to your parents? Or I didn't say to your parents. I said, what advice would you give to the parents of graduating seniors? I got to say that that was probably not a good question for me to ask. Because here's what my daughter Mindy said. She said, for parents, I'd say, think ahead about what level of communication and relationship you want to maintain with your kids and agree on regular times to reconnect, because she understands the distance involved. It doesn't have to be a phone call, email, or texting. Just to stay in touch will help parents keep a pulse on potential problems their kids are facing and make it easier for kids to share with parents what is going on in their new lives. Don't wait till there is a problem to practice communication. Huge mistakes don't happen overnight. There is usually ample opportunity for good counsel if the communication lines are active and both sides are willing to be respectful and listen. That's good advice. And I got to tell you, she didn't just get it out of a vacuum. She got it from personal experience. My daughter Nicole says this, and she's just she's got one more year before she graduates from Liberty University. She says, don't do anything that you'll regret. Well, that's good advice. But she says, if you do, then learn from these things. Don't let them overcome you. Don't be overcome with these regrets. Move on to be better. Guess who told that to her? Her older brother Charles wrote a letter to her and said, just a word of advice. That's huge. That's why we need community. That's why I always recommend that you have big families. Nikki also said to parents, and again, this is my other daughter, she says to parents, always accept your children. Be open to hear their mistakes. Be able to love them unconditionally through their mistakes. There's nothing worse than wanting to tell a parent what you're going through, but feeling the fear of not being able to tell them. Keep open arms and ears always. That's good advice. It's also good advice to seniors because you got to reciprocate back to mom and dad when you get off on your own there. That communication with your family, it's huge. It's huge. Let me tell you the story of my son Charles. And this is kind of a personal time here, but I think it's important because I look at our young people and I realize the world that they graduate into is not a friendly world. It's not a bad world, and I don't want to be discouraging. I really look at your anticipation, your hopes, and your desires, and man, I'm for you. I want you to see them, but I just want you to be realistic. Life doesn't always turn out the way we want it to. My son Charles, who was here and he preached here, he's taller than I am, and he's better looking than I am, and he's actually a better preacher than I am, but that wasn't always the case. Charles, graduating senior from Redwood Christian High School in the Bay Area in California there, typical graduating senior, kind of got all his classes done, got plenty of time, a little bit wild, and yes, just not living like mom and dad would like him to, and we had these chats, and we're quite concerned about him. Charles and two of his friends from school went up to what's that? Say it. It's that valley, that beautiful valley in California there, Yosemite. He and his two friends went hiking up in Yosemite. In Yosemite, the paths are clearly marked. Stay on the paths. When you say that to a teenager, it means, really? And here's why I'm saying it to you. Because that sign is there for a reason. They started making their own way up Yosemite Cliff there, and it looks like you can possibly do it. They were about 2/3 of the way up. One of my son's best friends was in the lead. Then it was Charles, and then it was his other friend. And they came to a bit of a place where they had to make a jump to catch the next rock. And so his friend Paul jumped to catch the rock, missed it, slipped right past Charles, down about 130 feet. And all these two boys could hear was this body bumping its way down through the rocks and the trees and so forth. And their immediate response was to slide down as quickly as they could to get to their friend Paul. And Charles called me up on his phone with Paul on his lap. He says, "Dad, air is coming out of his chest, and I don't know what to do for him." And I said, "Son, the only thing you can do is give him CPR, and then call for 911." Paul died on my son's lap. His best friend, the only son of a family, 4.0, number one in his senior class, died in my son's lap. Life has these events that come to us. They're life-changing events. Charles stood up in front of his Christian class and he said, I've pretended to be a Christian, but I'm going to tell you today," Charles said, "I'm going to tell you today, if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Savior, you're in grave danger." And from that day on, Charles gave his life into the ministry to preach the gospel. Still doing it today. Why did it take the death of his best friend dying in his lap to bring him to that? That's why I'm saying that we need to be conscious and listening to words of wisdom that people have to give to us. Where does this wisdom come from? Job. Job is a man of great extremes. He went from extreme wealth to extreme poverty. He went from extreme comfort to extreme pain. He was the object of a wager between God and Satan, and he didn't know it. But here's what Job has to say. Job 28, verse 20 says, "From where then does wisdom come? And where is the place of understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all living. It's concealed from the birds of the air. Abaddon and death say, we have heard a rumor of it with our ears, but God understands the way to it." That means he knows the way to wisdom, and he knows its place. "For he looks to the ends of the earth. He sees everything under the heavens. When he gave to the wind its weight and appointed the waters by measure, when he made a decree for the rain and a way for the lightning of the thunder, then he saw it and declared it. He established it and searched it out." And, verse 28, "And he said to man, Behold, the fear of the Lord is wisdom, and to turn away from evil is understanding." Job is a very wise man. The book of Job is his struggle with God and what was happening with him. And at the end of the book, all he says to God is, "Okay, God, I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet. I will learn from you, and I want to hear what you have to say." I suggest to you, as you go into the world, there's a lot of voices clamoring for your attention. There's a lot of voices that want you to listen to them. You need to get alone and quiet with God, because the Bible says the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. To turn away from evil is understanding. Another man of legendary wisdom is Solomon. The Bible says about Solomon that there's no one wiser. He says this in the book of Ecclesiastes, the last couple of verses of Ecclesiastes. He says, besides being wise, the preacher, that would be Solomon, also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher, Solomon, sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. He was a wordsmith. The words of the wise are like goads. They're like nails firmly fixed, are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. That word shepherd has a capital S in it.
Oh.
Now notice what he says in conclusion. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard.
Is it working?
Again, we have a new plan. From now on, we'll rob the travelers before they reach Jericho.
We're okay. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, here it is. All has been heard. Here's what he says. Fear God, keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment and every secret thing, whether good or evil. I want to read a proverb from the book of Proverbs written by Solomon. And here's a recommendation I would give to you, regardless of whatever age you are, that you read one of these proverbs a day. There's 31 proverbs. You can read one a day for a month, for every month. And I promise you, if you make that a habit, these proverbs then become such a part of your life, and they come back to your mind. But one proverb a day for the rest of your life would be a huge benefit to you. Here's what he says in Proverbs chapter 2. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart. Knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech who forsake the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress, from her smooth words, who forsake the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, her paths to be departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. There's just so much in that passage. You'll need to go back and read it again. It's full of enormous amounts of wisdom, and why wisdom is so important, and what wisdom will do for you. Read it again. There's another man that I want to introduce to you. His name is Isaiah. Isaiah is one of the most prolific prophets of the Bible. His writings are considered some of the most elegant and descriptive literature in the Scriptures. Isaiah has a wonderful way with words. I'm positive it doesn't come out in the English, but we'll try. He says in chapter 55, verse 1, "Come everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come, buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligent to me, and eat what is good. Delight yourselves in rich food. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear that your soul may live, and I will make with you an everlasting covenant. My steadfast, sure love for you. Behold, I made him a witness to the peoples, a leader and commander for the peoples. Behold, you shall call a nation that you do not know, and a nation that did not know you shall run to you, because of the Lord your God and of the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon." And notice what he says, and this is so important. God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and they do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose, and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it to do." God is simply saying here, I have the words of wisdom. Like water waters the field, the wisdom that comes into your life from me, he says, it's going to be a profit and a benefit to you. It's going to cause you to accomplish that which I purpose and succeed in the thing for which I sent it. Here's what I want to say in closing to you today. And this is true of seniors graduating. It's true if you're still in school, looking forward to many years. It's true if you're out of school and have been many years in the path of life. The first thing is this. Wisdom is acknowledging God. God says very plainly, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Those are not my words. I probably would try and say it nicely. You just don't understand. God says, the fool says, there is no God. Acknowledge God. Not only acknowledge him, but honor him. Obey him. It's his path to success, his path to happiness, his path to fulfillment in life. Acknowledge God. Go to him first. He deserves it. He has earned our honor. He's earned our praise. Give that first to God. Second thing I would say to you, this is beyond acknowledging God, which is what Uva was saying the last several weeks, knowing God. But not only just knowing God, but developing a personal relationship with God. I can tell you that that's probably one of the most important things. Being able to understand who God is and what he means personally. For too many people, God is something, really just something out there. Not even just someone out there, but something out there. And they haven't yet been able to cross the vast divide. God was crushed when Adam and Eve turned against him. And that relationship with Adam and Eve was broken. And ever since that time, God has been pouring out his love and his mercy and his grace. God has been trying to woo us back to him. So often we put up our hands and say, sorry, I don't want to go there. But yet God tenderly and continually and mercifully draws us back, because God wants a personal relationship with you. Think about that, folks. Think what that means, that the God of glory, with all his immense heart, is infinite love and grace and mercy, wants to have a personal relationship with you. It's difficult for us to get our mind about it, but you know how it works? Time and effort. If you put the time and the effort into getting to know God, He'll come to you. He'll come to you. Time and effort does so many things. The reason we don't have a walk with God, the reason we don't have a personal relationship with God is because we haven't put the time and the effort into it. And if I learn one thing from asking my children the question, what advice would you give to your parents? I need to put more time and effort into communicating even over the distance. Even over the distance. I had some great conversations with my kids this past time I was in the States. Eye-opening conversations. The wonderful thing about children getting older is they talk to you like an adult. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's very painful. It's the same thing that's true with God. You can talk to God plainly, but just be willing to listen to what He has to say and to commit yourself to following what He has to say. And the last bit of advice I would give is this, and it's just 2 words. If you don't hear anything else today, you should hear these 2 words. Trust God. Trust God. I taught a membership class yesterday, and in that membership class I used an illustration, which I'm going to use it again today for you, because I believe that everyone in here probably believes in God. And if you don't believe in God, then fine, you need to learn from this. But if you're here today and you don't believe in God, here's what the Bible says about you. Here's what God says about you. You're a fool. Okay? Don't blame me and don't get angry with me. You can get angry with God, but you don't believe in God, so it really doesn't matter, all right? But God says if you don't believe in Him, you're a fool. Now, so I would say that probably all of us believe God. Believe about a God or that there is a God. It's one thing to believe in God, but that doesn't mean you trust God at all. And you know something I've found in my own life? Yes, raised in a missionary family, been in Sunday school church all my life, literally. And the thing is that I was taught in a missionary school. We had devotions in the morning at breakfast. We had Bible first period in class every day. Every day before we went to bed, we had devotions in our dorm. And Bible. Did I know? Did I believe? Yes. The question is not whether or not you believe, it's whether you trust. Let me just give you this illustration. See this chair here? This chair, made in China, probably. I don't know who the engineer is, but chairs have been designed for a pretty long time now. And I can take a good look at this chair, and I can be fairly confident and say, I believe that this chair is capable of holding my weight. I can say that it's probably capable of holding a lot more weight than mine. It's designed for that. But it doesn't make any difference. That chair does nothing for me as long as I believe those things about it. And I would say God doesn't do anything for you just because you believe in God. The difference is this, is when I sit down on this chair, now I trust this chair. Now my weight is completely resting on my beliefs in this chair. This chair is capable of holding my weight. And I would say to you today, trust God. You need to go beyond this belief stuff. You need to believe in God. You need to believe what He has to say. You need to take those doctrines, though, and you need to put them into practice in your life. And you have to say, you know, God, this is what your Bible says. It may go against what other people are saying, but I trust you. I trust you. When you go to school and you get in with some people who want to take your life in a direction you know is not right, and they may have influence upon you and say, hey, listen, you don't need to do that, or you don't need to go to church, or you don't need to be reading your Bible. You know what? Just trust God. Just trust in Him. Lean on Him completely. And here's what the wisest man in the world has to say about that. He says, "My son," and this is Proverbs 3, "do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. Turn from evil. It will be healing to your flesh, refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights." Father, today we're recognizing the accomplishment of some people who have put time and effort into an education. And they've come to a milestone in their life, and it's precious, and it should be. But Lord, as we rejoice with them and as we congratulate them, in the back of our minds and our hearts, we realize this is really the first day of the rest of their life. There's much more. There's more to learn. There's more to experience. Life is full of many wonderful experiences. And even from this point in my life, and I look back, I would have to say, all things work together for good to them that love God, are called according to his purpose. I pray that you would put your hand of blessing upon these graduating seniors as they now step out into, for some, will be a brand new experience, an unknown experience. But for all, it's a different kind of life. I pray, God, that they would walk with you day in and day out, that they would make your word a part of their life, and not just express a belief in God. Their belief in God will be attacked from many different directions. Help them to continue to trust in you, to not lean on their own understanding, because we can't see tomorrow or the next day. In all their ways, I pray that they would acknowledge you. Be wise in your wisdom and not in their own wisdom. So God, we, as a church, as moms and dads, as fellow travelers in this journey, we wrap our arms around these seniors, and we beg for God's blessing upon their life. And we pray these things in Jesus'